For a long time, I stayed away from the Acropolis. It daunted me, that somber rock. I preferred to wander in the modern city, imperfect, blaring. The weight and moment of those worked stones promised to make the business of seeing them a complicated one. So much converges there. It's what we've rescued from the madness. Beauty, dignity, order, proportion. There are obligations attached to such a visit. Then there was the question of its renown. I saw myself climbing the rough streets of the Plaka, past the discos, the handbag shops, the rows of bamboo chairs. Slowly, out of every bending lane, in waves of color and sound, came tourists in striped sneakers, fanning themselves with postcards, the Philhellenes, laboring uphill, vastly unhappy, mingling in one unbroken line up to the monumental gateway. We know those gaunt families whose night scoutings remind us so much of our childhood games. We know the stalking strangler, the gunman with sleepy eyes, the killer of women, the killer of vagrant old men, the killer of blacks, the sniper, the slasher in tight leather, the rooftop sodomist who hurls children into the narrow alley below. These things are in the literature, along with the screams of victims in some cases, which their murderers have thought instructive to put on tape. Here, he said, we have a set of crimes that take us beyond all this. There's a different signature here, a deeper and austere calculation. The murders are so striking in design that we tend to overlook the physical act itself. The repeated pounding and gouging of a claw hammer, the blood mess washing out. We barely consider the victims except as elements in the pattern. So we talked, so we argued, taking roles, discarding them, the social theorist, the interrogator, the criminologist. He reset his chair squarely on the floor, as though to demonstrate something. I'm imagining this. Demonstrate what it was we were trying to do in all this talk. Set a premise for the act. Put it at some fixed level with regard to the earth. But the next thing he said came out of nowhere, or out of the waveforms of another occasion. Past moments had a way of surfacing in his face, in delayed recognitions, and he simply entered the spoken thought. I've always believed I could see things other people couldn't. Elements falling into place, a design, a shape in the chaos of things. I suppose I find these moments precious and reassuring because they take place outside me, outside the silent grid, because they suggest an outer state that works somewhat the way my mind does, but without the relentlessness, the predeterminative quality. I feel I'm safe for myself as long as there's an accidental pattern to observe in the physical world. My conviction is that they'll want to do it. The life they lead out here, what they do, seems so close to something on film, so natural to film, that I believe, once I talk to them, they'll see it's an idea they might have thought of themselves. An idea involving languages, patterns, extreme forms, extreme ways of seeing. Film is more than the 20th century art. It's another part of the 20th century mind. It's the world seen from inside. We've come to a certain point in the history of film. If a thing can be filmed, film is implied in the thing itself. This is where we are. The 20th century is on film. It's the filmed century. You have to ask yourself if there's anything about us more important than the fact that we're constantly on film, constantly watching ourselves. The whole world is on film, all the time. spy satellites, microscopic scanners, pictures of the uterus, embryos, sex, war, assassinations, everything. I can't believe these people won't instantly see they belong on film. Instantly.
For a long time, nothing happens, Emmerich said. We begin to think we barely exist. People wander off, people die, many differences appear among us. We lose purpose, suffer setbacks. There are differences in meaning, differences in words. These bins were made of dung and earth. There were figures in the distant fields, stooped, moving. A dusty snake curved through the weeds. The one color, formed and ordered, the high white sun. But there's still the program, Emmerich said. Singh has found a man. We are waiting for him to approach Hawa Mendir. Let's face it, the most interesting thing we do is kill. Only a death can complete the program. You know this. It goes deep, this recognition, beyond words. Sometimes I ask myself, Emmerich said, what is the function of a murderer? Is he the person you go to in order to confess? Let me tell you what I like about the desert. The desert is a solution. Simple, inevitable. It's like a mathematical solution applied to the affairs of the planet. Oceans are the subconscious of the world. Deserts are the waking awareness, the simple and clear solution. My mind works better in the desert. My mind is a raised tablet out here. Everything counts in the desert. The simplest word has enormous power. This is fitting because it's part of the Indian tradition. The word in India has enormous power. Not what people mean, but what they say. Intended meaning is beside the point. The word itself is all that matters. The Hindu woman tries to avoid speaking her husband's name. Every utterance of his name brings him closer to death. You know this. I'm not telling you something you don't know. Or am I? Hell is the place we don't know we're in. I wasn't sure how to take that remark. Was he saying that he and I were in hell, or that everyone else was? Everyone in rooms, houses, chairs with armrests. Is hell a lack of awareness? Once you know you're there, is this your escape? Or is hell the one place in the world we don't see what it is? The one place we can never know? Is that what he meant? Is hell what we say to each other, or what we can't say? What is beyond our reach? The sentence defeated me. I was afraid of the desert, but drawn to it, drawn to the contradiction. Men will come to fill this empty place. This place is empty in order that men may rush in to fill it. The world has become self-referring. You know this. This thing is seeped into the texture of the world. The world for thousands of years was our escape, was our refuge. Men hid from themselves in the world. We hid from God or death. The world was where we lived. The self was where we went mad and died. But now, the world has made a self of its own. Why? How? Never mind. What happens to us now that the world has a self? How do we say the simplest things without falling into a trap? Where do we go? How do we live? Who do we believe? This is my vision. A self-referring world. A world in which there is no escape.
The marble seems to drip with honey, the pale autumnal hue produced by iron oxide in the stone. And there are stones lying about, stones everywhere as I cross around to the south colonnade. Blocks, slabs, capitals, column drums. The temple is cordoned by ropes, but this mingled debris is all over the ground, specked surfaces, rough to the touch, wasting in acid rain. Beyond the retaining wall, the great city spreads, ringed by mountains, heat-struck, steeped in calamity. The smoke of small fires hangs on the hills, motionless, fixed there. The breathless rim, cinders falling from the sky, paralysis. Nothing will disperse but powers of sound, rising from the traffic arcs, the jittery cars locked in concrete. Bombings will become commonplace. Car bombings, fire bombings of offices and department stores. A blind might will seem to shake things, to course headlong through that entire year. No one claims credit for the worst of the terror.